Israel is 5,690 miles away from the US, 11 hours by plane. Hate travels faster. In a comment, in a post, in a second. Jewish hate is up 388% in the US. Black hate, Muslim hate, and Asian hate are up too. When one hate rises, they all do. Let's stand up to all hate together. Share and wear the blue square from standuptojewishhate.org.
It's easy to lose sleep when you're worried about your health insurance plan. But when you have a family counting on you to take care of them, having the right coverage is more important than ever. That's why Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield is here to help. With low to no cost plans for you and your family, so you never go it alone. That's our Anthem. Click to learn more.
What's up, y'all? This is Neena Perez, and this is Straight Talk, No Sugar Added. I'm so stoked you're here. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, all that great stuff. You know that we want to grow this community because I go around the world finding the best humans on the planet to come on here to grow, challenge, and transform your thinking. So I think I got the guy for you. We're joined today by Dr. Jonathan Marion. He's a transformational life coach. See, it's in his title. He's a transformational life coach and award-winning cultural anthropology professor, and he believes in the power of authenticity to create ripples of change, making the world a more connected place. I can't wait to get into this with you. He's here to help us transcend traditional measures of success and live truly meaningful lives. Now we're going to dive into this and get some ripples into our life. How are you? How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me, Neena.
I'm glad you're here. I was following you a little bit on Instagram. You're quite the dancer as well. So we're going to get all into that. But before we get started, one of the things I like to do for my audience is I like to introduce them to who you are, right? Because I think it's important for them to kind of get to know you and get connected with, why you do what you do today. So tell us who you are. Who are you, Dr. Jonathan Marion? Who are you?
So as you said, I now do work as a transformational life coach and speaker, but I had retired from a 20-year career in academia as a cultural anthropology professor. And
So cool.
that obviously informs much of how I approach people, situations, and understandings, though it's not what I do professionally any longer.
Right. So, well, let's talk about that. Why get into transformational life coaching? I mean, was it something that, you've gone through in life and you saw that there was something there that needed to be transformed in your life? Tell me a little bit about that journey.
Sure. I was actually in Rio de Janeiro in the first half of 2019, actually doing some research on dance because it's an academic topic that as far as issues of performance, embodiment, identity, and gender, I've done lots of research on. And I was staying with a very good friend of mine at his apartment, not one of the tourist areas, and, very humble. And
Mhm.
I was realizing that I was staying in a guest room that was smaller than my closet at home, but I felt more at home here. And it made me think, what is that about? And I
Right.
realized that for me, a lot of it was that my friends there knew what I did professionally. They were proud of me, proud for me, but they didn't really care. They loved me, Jonathan, not my
Right.
accomplishments, not my accolades. And that wasn't going to be my life if I stayed in academia.
Right.
And so
Wow.
that was the impetus to change. And then when I thought about what direction to go, I realized that while I was good at the different parts of academic life, such as research and publishing and professional service and leadership, it was only the teaching that really called to me.
Mm.
But it wasn't even the main classroom teaching, but those informal conversations before and after classes with students where they had their own questions, or with my graduate students where I was helping them figure out what are your questions and how are you going to find your answers? Well, that's life coaching.
Right. But why Brazil? Why did you go there? Did you grow up there? Like, what was that about?
Yeah, no, not at all. The dance form that I practice the most now, not where I started, but is Brazilian Zook. And so,
Mhm.
especially as a cultural anthropology professor, if you're going to actually study something, you need to do it and participate. So, if I'm going to learn
Cool.
Brazilian Zook, I'm going to spend time in Brazil.
That's really neat. How long did you end up staying there?
That trip, I was there the first half of 2019. It was my third trip back within a 2-year period at the time, and I've been 2 months more last December and January.
It must be getting harder and harder to leave.
It is, but I've been a full-time nomad since the beginning of 22, so I'm pretty much somewhere else every month as it
Oh,
is.
that's
At the
cool.
moment, I'm
That's
actually
cool.
in Bali, Indonesia, at a Zook retreat.
Wow. Talk about a change. You really did change. That's amazing. So tell me about why transformational coaching though, right? I know that you like the conversations and all of that, but what made you feel like that was needed? Like why did you take that shift?
Yeah, so the idea of helping people figure out what were their questions and how were they going to find their own answers was life
Mhm.
coaching. And then the transformational was largely because that was what I'd lived. I'd been following a certain paradigm of, get your PhD, get into academia, get a tenure
Yeah.
track job, get
Yeah.
tenure. And yet life wasn't as meaningful or fulfilling as I thought it was going to be if I had accomplished all those things.
Right.
So I coach to
Mhm.
specifically that niche of, are you accomplished by an external measure, but yet life is not as meaningful or fulfilling as you had thought it was going to be, or as you had been told, by society or internalized that it would be. And you're
Yeah.
looking for what's really going to transform your life to be the best one for you right now.
That's really interesting, isn't it? It's something how life takes us on these journeys as well, because even though you're right, I agree with you 100%. I also believe that that is necessary for our growth and our transformation too, right? To go through that societal, expectations of us, right? But then to be able to take all of that knowledge and wisdom and education and everything, and then use that to help someone in their life today is the reason I think why you went through it to begin with. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I would build on that and say, we all have experiences, we all
Mhm,
face challenges.
mhm,
And to me, the mark isn't, how easy or how difficult things have been, but what do you do with it?
mhm.
And so that's where that idea of ripples came out to me. So many people are familiar with that idea of, ROI is return on investment. But the
Right.
version I heard that really resonated for me was ripples of impact. And so, how am I going to show up in the world? And what are the things I'm going to do? And what ripples are those things going to have?
How do you guide people on how to show up in the world, right? Like, I think that's really difficult for a lot of people because I think, well, let me just back up a second. What I'm noticing in my coaching program is that they're always looking for that next shiny object, right? There's a lot of stuff going on and we have way too many choices, I think. Our brain cannot take all of that. So how do you do that? How do you start having them, look at life in that way so that they can start transforming their lives?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad you bring this up because part of why I actually decided I was going to, use the umbrella of transformational life coaching is I'm not someone who, for me, wants to have a client for 2 or 3 years. Again, I'm always available for support if they want to check back in,
Right.
but I want to give them the tools to go out. Because again, it's that ripples idea. And if
Mhm.
I have an impact on them and they can live a different life and go out and impact the people they encounter, I think that's how the world becomes more caring, connected, and healthier
Yeah.
rather than me just having fewer clients long term. And so as far as how do I actually work with and facilitate change, I have both a strategic and a tactical piece to it. The strategic one, I think, goes back to the idea of we're human beings, not human doings.
Mhm,
And so
mhm.
if we focus on how we want to actually be in the world, as opposed to what we want to do, what we want to accomplish, it starts to shift. And so I use being as an acronym. And the B is for begin where you are, because I think all too often we rush into changing things without really looking at what actually is. Sometimes
Right.
we're overly critical, sometimes we're overestimating, where we're at in life. And so much of that is also informed by society's shoulds. Things should be this way, things should be
Mhm.
that way. And as one of my coaching mentors said, should is fighting with what is. So begin where you are. What's the actual lay of the land? What are the opportunities given your environment, circumstances, proclivities, and what are the constraints? And let's start there. And again, think about a map, whether it's a physical map, whether it's the GPS in your car. If you don't have a signal to figure out where you are to begin navigating, you can't get
Right.
anywhere.
Right.
If you
That's
don't
good.
have that
Yeah.
pin in the map that says this is where you are, it doesn't matter how
Mhm.
good the map is.
Mhm.
So begin where you are. Explore where you are going, because it's so easy to say, I want to go on vacation. Okay, great. Do you like museums? Do you like beaches? Do you like the mountains and rivers?
Right.
And then why? What about that is actually calling to you? So often, and I think this speaks to your point about opportunities and, all the options out there, we pursue things because we think we're supposed to. So
Yeah.
yes, I want that promotion at work. Well, why? Yes, it
Right.
is more prestige. Yes, it pays more, but it takes a lot more time. And so, yes, you have more money for vacation, but you don't have any time to take it. Like, is that really what you want?
So true. So true.
Um,
I love that.
so then I comes, identify your options for getting from point A to point B, because there's always multiple ways. And I think the other piece that I wasn't originally aware of is it's not only identify your options, but identify how do you make your best choices. So
Mm.
if you look at the decisions you've made in your life that have been the most fulfilling or rewarding for you, are those the ones where you've followed gut instinct? Are those the ones where you've done pro and con lists? Are those the ones when you've spoken to your friends and family and said, what do you think I should do? So how do you make your best choices? And then
Mhm.
using that, figure out, do I want the most direct route? Do I want the scenic route? Do I want to stop and see, the different things from the Guinness Book of World Records that I could pass on the way? Like, what's going to make it the best route for you?
Right. And not
So
judging yourself either, right? Not judging yourself when you're doing that. What if you want to take the scenic route? Take it. Some people think that they have to get from point A to point B the fastest possible, right? So that's really great. I love it. Keep going because you're teaching me some stuff here. Go ahead.
yeah, thank you so much. And I think you're exactly right. And that's the point. There is no right answer to any of this.
Right.
You begin wherever you are. You explore where you want to go. You identify
Mhm.
what is the best option for you. And that's also for you at this point in your life. Maybe 3 years from now, something else will be better. Maybe 5 years ago, something else was. The N is now start, because I think all too
I
often
love it.
we're so
Mhm.
busy, trying to make sure we have the perfect plan or that we've
Mhm.
identified everything that we never actually get going. And if you've done the work of really assessing where you're beginning from, really explored where you want to go and why, and really identified what are the different options and why you're choosing what you're choosing, if things change, they change and you're equipped to pivot.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
all encountered detours in life, you
Mhm.
know, in our social environments, in our professional capacities, even just actually driving home from work. Like, there've been detours in life. It all works out okay if you know where you're going.
Right. Right.
So I think the now start is a really often overlooked part, and especially the people who really get trapped by perfectionism, sometimes that's the hardest one to overcome, is actually start.
Right.
And then I think the piece that complements that and is the G in being is get your best life. And I don't mean that once you've done this, everything is perfect or that you don't need to keep doing any work or figuring things out. But I think it's very easy to get so caught up in the doing of things that we don't actually stop and appreciate, wait a minute,
Mhm.
this is what I was looking for and I have it now.
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean you can't set new goals. It doesn't mean you can't
Right.
decide you want to add something else, but appreciate what it is that you actually are living, what your experiences are, and that you're the one who's got yourself there, and that you have all of the tools, capacities, and resources to do the same thing at any point that you want to. So that's my
Right.
strategic piece, the
I
being
love it.
model.
Mhm. I love it. So, I'm just writing as you're talking, so I'm like, oh, okay, I got this. So I also like feel like it should be like a being, because A is awareness, right? Like you have to start with being aware that this is even necessary for you to actually begin, right? Because I think some of us sometimes get so bogged down with what the next thing is, like you said, that we don't stop for a second, right? And I think we have to become really self-aware that if we're not happy, it starts with us. It's all about us. So we have to be aware of that. If you are feeling that way, stop blaming your wife and your husband and your kids and your circumstances and then, and the government and everybody else, and start to become aware that there is a place where you need to start, right? You need to be aware. And the other thing that I got also was when you said, get your best life. I thought of, hey there, my amazing community of straight talkers. I just wanted to give a quick announcement because I wanted to introduce you to a transformative life coaching program that I have made exclusively for women. I want them to break free from shame and embrace their true potential so that they can build that life and business that they have always wanted. Now, our transformational coaching will guide you. We will help you. We will uncover your passion, your goals, and will develop your roadmap to success. Visit me at neenaperez.com and you can join an amazing community of women that are on the same trajectory as you, because I want you to create that life and business you deserve and transcend that shame and unwanted behaviors. So don't wait any longer. Visit neenaperez.com and let's embark on this journey together. Now back to the show. You talked about what that means and how you are really going to have to stop and pause and see where you are. It made me think of G also as gratitude, right? Just being grateful for the journey and being grateful for where you are right now. So I love that. I love your acronym. I love acronyms anyway. So you already had me at that, right? So all right. So tell me the other piece of this.
Yeah. So there's also a tactical piece. And for me, that has to do with being how you want to be. So there's lots of great work out there about like meaning. So everything from Simon Sinek about find your why, and go back to even Viktor Frankl and Man's Search for Meaning, and not the idea that there is a meaning to life, but that everyone needs to find what makes it meaningful for them. I think that's all super important work, and I recommend all of it. At the same time, at least in my own experiences and the clients I work with, in the moment when you're faced with struggles or conflicting pressures between things, it's sometimes too hard to connect with what's my why. And so the tactical piece for me is, how do I want to be? And I can use that, how do I want to be, in this relationship, but it can also be, how do I want to be in this very conversation at this very moment? And that's a much shorter question to be able to connect with. And what I found is, even in those instances where life is the most overwhelming and I can't even in the abstract do the how do I want to be right now, we've all had the experience of like 2 hours from now, 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now, I'm like, shoot, I wish I'd said that. I wish I'd done that. And so what I've come to refer to as future casting is when I'm really overwhelmed, it's like pause, exhale. Too oftentimes people tell us to take a breath, but if you don't exhale first, there's no capacity to really inhale deeply.
That's good.
And then I think, what is the 5 year from now version of Jonathan going to wish I have said or done right now? And
I love that. That's so good.
It's pretty simple to identify. It doesn't mean it's easy to do. It does not mean it's easy to do. But I can go, okay, 5 years from now, this is how I will have wished to have shown up right now. That tells me how I'm going to actually go about doing things in this moment.
So good. So good. I talk about that all the time too, because I think it's so important. It's something I've learned in my life, and I try to pause as many times as I can as well, especially when I'm in the middle of a struggle. Like when I'm in the middle of a struggle is when I really say, okay, you're overwhelmed right now. Write this down, because you're going to make choices right now. What the best choice is that you think you're going to like a year, 2 years, 5 years from now, because you're not going to just sit here and just be in it, right? I'd be a victim, because I was a victim for a very long time in the beginning parts of my life. And I just refused to keep doing that. So I love that. I love that the how, I think, is always important anyway for all of us, right? I have a bunch of programs and I always talk about the how, because we never think about how we're going to make it happen. We always at least some of the people that I speak to, it's all about let's manifest it, but they never say how, or they never say how it's going to come about. They just, yeah, just wish it. No, it's not going to work. You can wish it all day. I've been wishing for billions of dollars all day. It's not happening, right? So it's not happening until you start putting in the work that you have to put. How? Get your plan together, right? I think it's so important. I think we've been sold a lot of false goods out there, right? And so it's important also to navigate all of that and what is important to you. You don't have to jump on every single program, and you don't have to jump on every single live event or every single coaching call or every single, and I don't know if you're seeing that as well. I guess I'm just seeing a lot of it, and so I'm speaking to a lot of women right now in my coaching program, and it's like, they've been hurt a lot by a lot of different different programs and stuff like that who have made false promises, which is very sad. But it's also, I think, what you're talking about here, right? They don't stop for a second. Just stop, and I think it's because they think that if they stop, they're not hustling good, and they're not hustling enough, they're not strong enough, they're not smart enough, whatever that enough is. And I always say, okay, compared to what? They don't know how to even answer that because they're comparing to what? An
Mhm.
illusion, right? So tell me about how you walk your clients through this, through your program. Do they call you, and is it a one-time call? Is it a few months? I mean, how do you navigate that?
Sure. So first and foremost, it's, what service actually is going to be the most useful for them and is
Mhm.
feasible. Because I think it's much too easy to say, here is what's available. And to speaking to your point of having been basically sold a bill of goods, if you really want to make a difference, then you'd find a way to do it. And then you
Right.
hear these programs where they're saying, take out a new credit card. How is that responsible to people?
Mhm.
And so,
Mhm.
what I invite anyone and everyone to do is schedule a free 30-minute consultation with me. Let's see if I can just offer you something of value right here and now. And then, if it makes sense for me to offer support longer term in a different capacity, let's figure out what that is.
Mhm.
My signature program is sort of a 6-month one, and that's the transformational one. Excuse me, where I really spend more than a month on each step of that being process. And
That's awesome.
we don't meet every week. We tend to meet every other week, but so that
Mhm.
there's some time in between to integrate. And I'm not just trying to load you with material, but there's exercises for you to actually figure out the things and for us to build on what you've discovered. That said, there's other ways. So I have a group coaching program on maximizing your strengths. We use the VIA strengths. And again, I think it's that idea. If you take any, world champion athlete, they didn't become a world champion because you said, oh, you know, your running is amazing, but when we put you in the water, you're pretty slow. Let's spend all the time training your swimming. No,
Right.
you find what they're good at and you maximize what they're good at.
That's
We
right.
don't take one form, one shape suits everyone. So I prefer for people, if you're going to transform, what are your strengths? What are your natural proclivities? How can you use those to accomplish the same thing rather than following someone else's path of that's how they did it? And
Right.
so that I run both like a 7-week sprint version at the end of the year. Normally it's a 6 to 12 week, normally a 12-week program now where we meet every other week. But I can also do custom versions of that, longer, shorter, as long as I have at least 5 people who are interested. Uh,
Right.
Next year, I will be actually doing a group version of the longer being program as well. And again, other things, shorter term engagements, and also speaking on these topics to different audiences if they're interested and they feel it could add value to participants, organization, whatever it is.
Right. Right. Do you work with organizations mainly, or mainly with individuals?
Coaching wise, mainly with individuals, though I've done some consulting for different organizations. Innovations in Peace Building and International. The CEO was actually my first pro bono client. And some of
Cool.
that was, I didn't want my pro bono work to be, friends and family, like, oh, do you want some free coaching?
Right.
And so Charles Davidson, um, the nonprofit had already existed for over a decade, but under a different name. But he works on sustainable peace building efforts with former child combatants in the Congo. And I'm like,
Mm.
that's what I want my pro bono work to support.
Mhm.
And so, we actually went through the whole process, and it really helped give him clarity on what did he want to do in his life in general, what did he want to
Wow.
do with the uh, actual organization. And that's part of how they ended up rebranding it, renaming it. And even though we didn't directly talk about finances, 3 months after we were done, they had 3 times more in the bank. A year after we were done, 10 times more,
Yeah.
because he
Yeah.
was so much clearer on what they were
Mhm.
trying to do and presenting that to possible donors. We never talked about fitness in particular. 3 months after we were done, he was down 15 pounds from when we'd started. Because if you're clear about what you want, how is the right way for you to show up, life changes.
Right. Exactly. So for those who are listening, right? I have a lot of leaders and entrepreneurs that listen to the show. So if you can tell them, like, give them like a takeaway or something they could take with them, right? Because one of the things I realized, and you nailed it, was that, a lot of times we're seeing through a tunnel, right? So we see a financial barrier or whatever, and that's what we're focusing on. And oh no, I just need money. And they don't realize that, no, when you get that money, you're just going to keep needing money. Right. So there has to be some sort of awareness that comes out of this. And you have to be like, also vulnerable to say, this is what I need help in, right? I have worked with a lot of CEOs, strong women, they got this, blah, blah, blah. And then you get them behind the scenes and they're like falling apart because they have to be strong all the time. You don't. You don't. And I think that it's beautiful, the story you just shared with us, because him changing and really becoming aware and really knowing what he really wants and how to show up in life changed everything, right? It rippled on everything. And that's what I want those who are listening to get out of this as well. That, when they work with a transformational coach like yourself, it's not like you have to focus on this one thing and just think that that's going to be the solution of your problem, and then you're done. It's a lifestyle change. I think it's a lifestyle change, right? It changes you completely. Your family, your dynamics, your boundaries, it changes everything. So if you can tell one of these leaders or entrepreneurs that are listening on a way to become aware or think about or at least acknowledge that they may need change, what would that be?
So I'm actually going to borrow from Dory Clark, paraphrasing slightly, but basically choose what to suck at. We can't all be
Good.
good at everything. And if
Yes.
we're trying to be, that's when it never is enough time, never is enough energy, never is enough resources. Like, we can't do everything. So what are the things which you're willing to offload? It doesn't mean that you ignore them, but whether it's you get an assistant, whether it's you hire someone else, whether it's you just get, pre-made graphics for a certain thing rather than having them designed specifically, or trying to learn how to actually design those things. What are
Mhm.
you willing to suck at so that you can be excellent at the things you want to be?
That's so good. It's so good. Dr. Jonathan Marion dropping some wisdom in here today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and for dropping all this wisdom. I took notes. So I really love your acronym. I love how you come about your energy. And I want to thank you because I know that, people who are listening, they're going to take some nuggets away from this and hopefully even call you to want to work with you. So do you work with both men and women, by the way?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Interestingly, I think more of my clients have actually been women, even though I gave an example of a man. But
Right.
again, if by you're accomplished by external measures and life just isn't as meaningful or fulfilling as you thought it was going to be, want it to be, then I'm happy to talk to you. Nothing else matters to me. And
Right.
again, I have the cultural anthropology background, not just looking at it through a Western lens of any of these things. It's whatever's right for you is the
That's
right
so
answer. And I'm
great.
just here to walk beside you and help you figure out what that is for you.
So how do they get in contact with you if they want to know a little bit more?
Yeah, the best way is actually just look at my website, and you can either get on my schedule directly or send me a message there. And it's stepsalongtheway.global. Again, I work with people everywhere. I didn't want it to just be
That's
.com
cool.
and everyone
That's
fall
good.
into it.
Yeah.
And again, steps along the way. We all got to where we are by the steps we've taken, and you'll get the life you want if the steps you take going forward are done with intentionality. So
Yeah.
stepsalongtheway.global. People can also just email me directly, satwcoaching@gmail.com.
Awesome sauce. Thank you for being on Straight Talk. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Thank
Absolutely
you.
my pleasure, Neena. Thank you for having me.
Guys, I told you, didn't I tell you? I told you from the beginning that he was going to come in here and give you some transformation and ripples and stuff to take with you. So make sure that you follow this young man. I'm going to make sure to list all of his information below. I really like him. I like his energy. I like what he brings. I like how smart he is. I love all of that. So make sure that you guys follow him. Make sure that you like, share, subscribe, and all of that so that we can grow the community. And also so that if you know someone who is going to be able to pull some things out of this for themselves and be able to be impacted because of all of the knowledge that he dropped here today, I want to thank you for doing that. All right. Thank you guys so much. This is Neena Perez, Straight Talk, no sugar added. Until next time.
At Sleep Outfitters Outlet, great sleep is a big deal. Save 40 to 60% every day on every Sealy, Stearns & Foster, and Tempur-Pedic. Queens as low as $249. Customer exchanges, closeouts, and floor samples. Inventory changes daily, so come in for your dream deal today. With no credit-needed financing, expert advice, and up to 60% off retail, it's never been easier to get the sleep and savings you deserve. Go to sleepoutfittersoutlet.com for financing details and to find a store near you.
Israel is 5,690 miles away from the U.S., 11 hours by plane. Hate travels faster. In a comment, in a post, in a second. Jewish hate is up 388% in the U.S. Black hate, Muslim hate, and Asian hate are up too. When one hate rises, they all do. Let's stand up to all hate together. Share and wear the blue square from standuptojewishhate.org.